Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of The Kindred. Today, we are joined once again by our lovely guest, Mr. Danny Porter. Danny, give us a wave and a smile. Look at him. You love to see it.
Look at him.
We wanted to make sure, following the recent data slate, that we did kind of a quicker and more ad hoc session where we're going to go over some of the changes that we had for Leagues of Votann. If we have some time, how some of those changes might even impact other factions or the meta as a whole. So strap in, get ready. We're going to talk about a bunch of items. What do you want to start with first, Mr. Pastrami?
What I want to talk about first is, well, first of all, it's really nice that we've been able to do. I feel like we all knew that we were going to get a data slate this week.
I mean, there was no other option, really, was there? If you say end of January, and that's today.
Yep.
What we all know, Games Workshop. Is there a rhyme or reason to like a lot of the stuff? You know what I mean? Like you generally never know sometimes. But very happy it finally came out. I, for one, think what I would like to talk about is the fact that I think we kind of got we didn't get harshly nerfed. We didn't get buffed, obviously. Like we hit some nerfs. I think the biggest thing I would like to say is thank God they did not change our token rule at the beginning of the game. That would have, I think, destroyed us. I think that would have absolutely destroyed us. But otherwise, I think we could live with this, right? Like, don't you? I don't want to speak for all of us, but I think we could live with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general the changes that Votann got were pretty fair. I did not expect to see Thunderkin on the list of things that went up.
That was literally all LVO's fault. That was literally only LVO's fault. It had to have been.
Not what I expected to see come up at all, because I don't think that was broadly a popular choice, but that's the way that she goes. I think compared to how some of the other factions got through, and some of the changes we got, especially to things like World Eaters, which got dumpstered way harder than I would have expected out of nowhere.
Someone at GW was listening to our podcast.
At a high level,
they bought it.
At a high level, it was very warranted for how it was being used. But I think Votann got away fine, and all the changes seem fair, at least from my perspective. Danny, what do you think?
I mean, I think we got away pretty well, actually, to be fair. I was, I mean, for like months, we were like, 55% win ratio? Across the board, and then so I think the scare there was we'll take a big hit because that's sort of how Games Workshop react to these things, and then taking a hit only to like half guard. Sagittars was very expected. Half guard was expected because we all use half guard, but I just don't understand the Thunderkin at all. Like
I genuinely think that was. They looked at LVO, which is so silly. Like, there's no other reason.
But why would you make the decision over one tournament? That makes no sense.
Dude, I don't know.
I don't know.
I do what I hope happened is right. Like we have, and this is where I think sometimes percentages and stats are dangerous. Like, yes, did we have a high win rate? Sure, but if you looked at how many actual events were won straight out by Votann, it is not as much compared to the other top factions that are in that same top 5 that have high percentages.
It was a larger X and 1 army, right?
Exactly. We are 100% most an X and 1 army, which is like, that's cool. Quite frankly, every army should be an X and 1 army. No army should just be always topping the events always. I think the healthy spot is that every army can be a good pilot and a good list, X and 1, and like do very well that way. I think if they did jump the gun and were like, oh, they were at like in the high 50s for a bit and just dumpster us, it's like, well, no one was really winning that many back-to-back. Like every Meta Monday, when you look at the events that are win, you see a bunch of Votann in the top, but rarely did you see actually, you know what? Here, let's do this. We have the tools. I'm curious how many actually Votann tournament wins there are completely.
And while we pull that up, to give everybody context, for Votann, the changes that we're looking at, there were only 3. They were pretty simple. You have Brokir Thunderkin, they went up to 85 points for 3, or 170 for a unit of 6. Einhir Hearthguard went to 160 for 5, or 320 for 10. And the Sagittar went to 115. If memory serves, this means that the Brokir Thunderkin went up about 5 points per model, right? And then, because was 75 for 3 before?
Oh. No, it's 75 to 85, right? So it's
yeah, 75 to 85. So a total of 10 points.
Yeah, 10 points. Yeah.
Yep.
We know.
And then the same thing for the Hearthguard. Those went up 10 points for
5. So don't forget. Everyone's like, oh, they only went up 10 points. They only went 10 points. It's like, well, for 5, no one. I mean, not no one. Most time you're taking them in 10s.
So they went up 20 for the full group. Yeah. And then Sagittars went up. I think the Sagittars we talked about in the last episode, but that was expected by most of us.
Truly. Thank God bikes didn't go up. I would have died.
That's what I don't understand. I don't understand why bikes didn't go up, but the Thunderkin did. That makes no sense.
Well, here's the thing, dude. We're all about to start taking like 18 bikes probably, or at least 12 to 18 bikes. I feel like. I mean, personally, I feel like bikes are now my hero. I took out actually, wait. Before I get too far in, so all of 10th edition, so when you go to stat check, it only shows you the most current meta after the last data slate or book or whatever. So that's always important info. When everyone goes to stat check, they're like, oh my god, this army's doing nuts right now. It can have literally 2 tournaments of data in there. So very important note there. But if you click on the meta and you click all, it shows you all of what the current edition is. So in all of 10th edition, how many event wins total do you both think Votann got? I'm curious what you both think.
4.
I was gonna say 5. Maybe.
Okay, both are not bad. It's 10.
Okay.
Which is fair, right? That is fair.
There's a ton of events, so yeah.
How many do you think Eldar have?
Oh.
220.
That's pretty good. I want to say 56.
68.
That's close.
Total
I was very
event wins
close.
10th edition.
Yeah, that's
Gene
fair.
Stealer Cults, 16. Chaos Space Marines, 24. Necrons, 17. So 10 is a fair number for an army that's doing this well, but compared to Chaos Space
I'm
Marines,
also
to
curious,
Eldar,
do they limit it by size as well? Because for me...
Yeah, oh yes, also a good point.
Yeah.
Yes, this is only GT and above
And
tournaments.
does
This is not RGT.
can you split it between, say, 40 to 50 players or 100 plus players? Or because I think the more rounds a GT has, that makes a massive difference on the win ratio.
No, that is a great... That is 100%. It doesn't look like you could do that split, but you can split things by the player's experience, if they've done a GT before or not. Mm-hmm. You can also split if you take that out.
I mean, I get the feeling that Votann's quite a new player, sort of good to win an event with, or at least in terms of win ratio.
I don't.
If you do
disagree with
newcomer,
that's fair.
it's 3 people.
Woo.
Yeah,
So
so
if you
I mean,
change that to,
it's not something that a new guy was coming in and just stomping everyone with.
They might. Well, they're probably gonna. They could probably pick it. I feel like in the scheme of things, Votann probably. We have tricks and things, but I do think, for the most part, a new person could probably pick that up and play that a little easier compared to Thousand Suns, obviously a crazy army, but. But there's also, interestingly enough, I'm curious what happens if I click the only a 5-round GT, which I would assume in my head a 5-round GT is probably more casual than a 6-round because that means it's a single day event as opposed, well, maybe not single day, but I don't know. I think it might be more chill. If you turn that down,
it's also player side. Yeah, so a 5-round event usually has less players.
But even so, I think this still goes to the point. The point I was trying to make was that we look at these stats and it's oh my god, Votann are in the top. They're almost 60%. It's yeah, but since 10th has come out last year, and we've seen the rise and fall of Gene Stealer Cults and Eldar and Casp, all these things, they're doing well, but they're not doing well as them. I mean, obviously, no one's doing well as Eldar. 68 is nuts. I've
said this many times, but I think you just can't make an opinion based on win ratio as just your only metric. It just doesn't work.
Yes, unless they're. I think we all could agree at the beginning of 10th, Votann was garbage, and that win ratio showed how garbage they were.
You don't need to look at the win ratio. And this is the other thing as well. Votann and Tau were the 2 armies that had a lower win ratio than I expected in terms of the actual power of the codex.
Especially Tau, dude. I think Tau since the beginning of 10th to now, I think are still very good. I just don't know many people are playing them.
They took some interesting hits.
Yeah.
As of this slate now. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah. But yeah, so actually let's go this is all good point. And the reason I brought that up is because I wanted to talk about, I'm happy that I would like to think that Games Workshop maybe looked at that and were okay, that's not necessary to completely dumpster them, which not even not many people, I would say a few got hit pretty hard. I don't think anyone is truly dumpstered. I don't think anyone is put in the bin unless you're world eaters. Truly. World eaters, unfortunately, are put in the bin. But
you could make the argument that AdMech are staying in the bin, considering
exactly.
Games Workshop has apparently affirmed that they hate that army.
They love Necrons, they love Orcs, they hate AdMech.
Yeah, that's weird. It's weird as well because I don't think AdMech is anywhere near as bad as people are making out. I think it's not got anywhere near as many builds. I think there's one solid build I think
It's a bankrupt build.
yeah, it does okay, but it's so expensive. Like we're talking like 30 flamers, 18 breaches,
Yeah.
and a bunch of Skitari. It's so expensive to build and get on the table. But yeah, I'd make
Um,
are in a bit of a dire situation, to be fair.
I think in terms of like moving forward with Votann, I feel like a lot of you had a couple different builds that a lot of people were playing. And I really think it went down to either like a bunch of Sagittar or Hecatons. And I think you filled those out however you wanted to, whether it be Thunderkin or Hearthguard or whatever. Me personally, I subscribe to a lot of the lists that a lot of us have been doing. I know, Danny, you've coined the like 5 Sagittar, 20 Hearthguard, and some Uthar stuff. I tried Uthar for a bit, never really felt good to me. I've always been very much in the 5 to 6 Sagittar like run though. Like I think that for me, and I filled out everything past that point. Going forward though, since Sagittar's got hit a little bit, Hearthguard. Honestly, that's actually my biggest loss for me here is Hearthguard going up. Personally, I know that we all took it. I think that was. I know we're not supposed to compare. We're not supposed to compare factions to faction. But like, fuck, dude. Like, they're not Terminators. Like, they do not deserve that point increase. They do not deserve to be 320 points in my opinion.
Well,
like, no way.
They're what 32 points a model right now, so that's what 16 points a wound. The problem is like they really don't deserve to be that expensive, but because they've got 2 guns and a melee weapon, they're costed appropriated to that level. Even though they are so swingy dependent on what meta you're in. So if you're in like a bunch of 2 armor saves, they're not doing anything. But if you're in, let's say, like a bunch of 4 armor saves, or it's like a Necron world where you can get 70 shots out, then they do a lot. And they just, it's a weird profile. I think they sort of need to I think they need to increase the points in the codex, but increase what the datasheet offers. Because
at least the survivability.
Yeah,
I would say. At the very least, if you brought -1 damage back, I think honestly I would be more. Not even listen. A 3rd wound I think would be too much. I really do. I think a 3rd wound would be too much for that data sheet. Like I think you're right because there is a lot of shooting out of that unit. But man, -1 damage would be amazing.
Yeah, I do agree it needs it because like right now there's so much damage too in the meta, so much damage too in the game. Like it's like they just
everyone's like, oh man, like your shit survives, but like yo, if you get 4, if I fail 4 saves, I'm losing nearly half the unit.
Yeah.
A 320 point unit.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me it's either they get +1 wound or it's -1 damage. It's not both. But
yeah, no, that'd be insane, right?
I would like to see some sort of. I mean, this is obviously going a little off topic. I would like to see some sort of like feel no pain leader. So you've got an option for either damage or feel no pain because I would like to see them a little bit more survivable, to be honest.
Well, I mean, this is also a good point to bring up is none of us really know when the codex for Votann is going to happen. I think a lot of people were suspecting end of 2024 or maybe beginning of 2025. So, like, we could be living in this world for, 4 months until the next data slate, depending how everything turns out. So, I think some of these weird changes or no changes kind of, for, like, books that are coming out soon, but like for us, like we're kind of stuck in this limbo waiting for it. But I think I was always in the 20 Hearthguard camp. That was always my thing. I have dumped 10 because I could just get more. And I think now I'm living in a post data slate world of just a lot of bikes, dudes. I think I'm just going hard bikes. I think I'm going to try 18 bikes. We're going to see how that works because I'm still doing 5 Sagittar. I think that's still very strong and very good for scoring and getting boys out in the world to score. But yeah, I think the Hearthguard aren't my shining star anymore.
So that seems like that could be an interesting segue for some of the folks that are going in this and they're planning ahead and they're looking at stuff. Because right now I know that for you, Dom, you're planning ahead for the BFS team tournament, right? And you're gonna be playing Votann with Stat Check, right?
Yep.
Okay. Inversely, I'm also going to the BFS tournament, but I'm not playing Votann. So I haven't been building my recent lists. Listen, man, you're not the captain. You don't pick your factions.
BFS, no, he's not wrong, right?
BFS assigned me to Chaos Knights for this one. That's what I'm playing. That's fine. But I spent yesterday building lists for that faction. So for anyone that was following along, what are some lists looking like for you guys right now? if you want to start.
Yeah, Danny, you actually posted a pretty good list. I think that is a good.
So
I think a good starting point for this data slate.
I fully agree. I think the 20 half guard is sort of like it's too inefficient now. Even at 300 points each, it's like if you include the characters, you're teetering on 750 points almost just to have them in. And now with the extra, it's like over 800 points to have 2 units in. That 2 units that can die quite quickly if you swing it that way. So for me, I dropped them for. Obviously, I've gone back to bikes. I've been playing bikes now all edition and all last edition. I still think 12 is a glorious number, but I'm actually leaning more into Thunderkin, even though they have gone up in points. And a lot of the reason for that is something we'll probably discuss later. Is sort of being able to look at the data slate and determine where the meta's going to move. And I think one of the problems Votann might have is going to be things like Drukhari.
Sure.
Of course, there's like Necrons with monoliths. There's a lot of Space Marines. I think Space Marines are going to start moving back into like the Iron Storm because that really deals with Necrons quite well. Yeah. So for me, that's where Thunder can come in because not only did they survive the melee a little bit better, they have a bit more survivability. They also pop transports open quite well. So I'm just trying to find where I posted my list because it could be anywhere.
I think I remembered it. You did Uthar. Call, I think
10 warriors,
Iron Master with Grim.
Yeah.
10 warriors.
10 warriors.
5 Sagittar, 6 brick of Grav Thunderkin, 1x10 Hearthguard, and then 2x6 bikes.
Yes, and 2 lots of 5 berserkers.
Oh yes, and then 2x5 berserkers. Yeah.
I still think Uthar is really important. The issue as well is you go get some armies that really rely on their leaders. So Necrons, for example, Wraiths. They really rely on obviously their feeling of pain. So what I've found, especially over the last couple of weeks as I've been testing into Eldars, is there's going to be scenarios against these kind of bricks where you might not kill the whole brick and then they come back and whatnot. So having Uthar in there as a redundancy to be able to just waltz in and kill a character, I think is really big. So that's what I'm going to use him for. Not only that, he also allows you to bring an extra Sagittar without having to invest in extra warriors or extra berserkers.
For sure.
But the 12 bikes, the 5 sags just really allows you to play aggressively, and I think Votann need to. I think Votann need to just play full foot on the pedal, push your opponent, kill them as soon as possible, because I think over time we just start losing units quickly. I just don't think we'll be able to survive in the meta that quickly. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I was checking that. I like that list a lot, and I do think the problem with me is I'm getting, so we got the player packet for BFS, and the terrain is dense. It is a lot of terrain, and it is like not very it's not a shooting gallery. Yeah. So I was looking at Thunderkin myself, and I really think, especially with Grim Demeanor being the way it is, but I think for my testing, I'm not shifting towards Thunderkin. I'm shifting. I'm trying. Well, obviously I have 2 months or 2.5 really. I'm gonna test out a bunch of bikes. I'm gonna test out my Sagittars, and I don't know. Maybe we'll see if it changes that way. I think you're right. I do think Uthar still has a place, especially if you're playing him that way. I just personally, like for my place, I haven't been able to make him work yet. And I feel like I'm just like at a point where I'm just like, like. I don't know an acronym to use, but I'm like hitting my head against the wall at the same time over and over again. Nothing changes, right?
I think he's not one of them units that you just throw in and he just makes massive value every game. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
However, we don't really have many Smash characters that can just waltz in from nowhere. But at the same time, he's also very good at. So let's look at Necrons, Canoptic. The Canoptic side, Canoptic core. So. One of the issues I sometimes find is they can move backwards if you get within 9.
Yeah.
However, little units like Uthar allows you to sort of force your opponent's hand a little bit. So you can get him out, move him within 9 first, get ready to charge. Your opponent is then like, right, do I allow Uthar to charge me and save the rest in case my opponent moves even further with half guard or bikes or whatever? Or do I just move straight away and then you can react to that? So it's things like that as well that I kind of like. He's a good counter to some tech pieces, I would say.
Sure.
So yeah.
I think that's very fair. I think See, this is why I hate bringing Danny in, because now I'm like, oh, maybe I do try Uthar. Like, no, like the fucking, I'm getting like Danny on the shoulder now. And I'm like, maybe I can make him work. I could fix him. I could fix Uthar. I think that's all very good points.
The other thing to mention as well is I'm not seeing as many people using that at the minute. I think appraising Glare is becoming really, really necessary. So
Sure.
so for example, elves. Let's look at elves. Elves are going to start moving towards an MSU based approach. Why? Because Wraithguard are kind of aren't working. The Incarns maybe not going to be good for, let's say, lesser skilled players that can't really utilize her as much as they want to. A lot of MSU style elves are creeping up in the meta already before the data slate. So I'm finding foe tokens straight away is not really ideal. And then if you get onto dense boards, you can't really utilize your Carl or Uthar as much as you want. I'm finding appraising is actually doing more long term than Grim is, because being able to get so for example, if your opponent, let's say your opponent's Shukari, he's got 6 Venoms, you can't token everybody, and they've also got stealth, right? So that's an issue. Same with Death Guard, right? They've got, let's say, 5 Rhinos full of 10 guys or whatever, 50 Plague Marines. You can't token everybody, and they don't necessarily kill you early enough. So being able to get that one token on one objective to be able to pop these transports and get the guys inside, I think, has become really important. So for me, that has sort of jumped up higher than Grim Demeanor has in terms of necessity in this.
So with that, I mean, we have the opportunity there. Do we want to go over any of the changes that some of the other factions have had to see how we might want to change up some of our lists? Like, is there,
yes.
Yeah, so I was going to say, because if things have changed up, are we going to see any like breakthrough lists maybe that are more mechanized? Do we think forts have more value? Are there any value in any other things right now? Just because obviously Leagues of Votann didn't change a ton point-wise, but mechanically I know some of the other armies changed. Do we want to
also there are things we forgot about, because there are some mechanics that do affect us too. Obviously, yes. We keep mentioning Grim Demeanor. There's reason for that, because finally it is written.
Yep.
Yes. It has been declared by on high that actual ignoring modifiers ignores everything on the data sheet. It is not just movement, leadership, and OC and stuff. It is guns, and it is everything. Thank God that has been. So that's why we keep bringing up Grim Demeanor, because before Grim Demeanor, it only really mattered if you're playing in WTC and then at LVO. That was like the only time you could actually ignore things.
Huge so finally. To Appraising Glare, though. Appraising Glare is great. I actually was using it beyond Grim in a number of circumstances.
For sure. Well, especially before. Definitely before. I would say like 100%. But another thing, one more mechanic thing that affects us, because a lot of people are going to get this wrong. I was even getting it wrong, and I think it should have some clarification. The uppy downy clarification that was written, we do not benefit from it. It is a huge bummer. I know. I was very excited. I thought I really was into bikes when I saw that. And I was like, oh my god, bike stocks are like through the roof. Like, we're going to the moon, boys. But unfortunately, our ability specifically says they go into strat reserves, not they have to come down our next reinforcement step, which was the clarification from Games Workshop. If you have that ability that says you can come down next reinforcements in turn 1, you can up and come down if you go second. We don't have that. It's a huge bummer. I really wish we did, because can you imagine turn 1 going second, just dropping 18 bikes down and just, I started blasting, baby. I don't know. That'd have been tight, but it's okay. But yes, I do think
they pregame 9, you move 12, you can still do enough shooting.
You could still do a lot, right? You still can do a lot, but it would have been cool though to have an extra little bit. You're not wrong. You still got a lot. Nor should you probably be throwing all your bikes turn 1.
I was just about to say that is the quickest way to lose all your bikes turn 1.
Yes, so. They've died to a stiff breeze. Yes, unfortunately, they have high toughness, but Jesus, it's wild how fast bikes die. It's not. I mean, basically before, what are you gonna do? But yes, I think that's very important, because with the other factions and their changes, and just kind of like, not even necessarily the changes that came from the data slate, but also just kind of a shift in meta that was already kind of happening. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've already seen the shift away from rates. Personally, I have not seen as much. Dude, at LVO, all the lists I was seeing, I didn't even play. I built my list for Necrons at LVO. I didn't play a single Necrons. Every list I was seeing was mostly Hypercrypt or Satan shenanigans or something. Like, I don't know if the rates are even what we're worried about right now in terms of, well, I don't want to say we're worried about, because you should be worried about any high level build, that you should always be planning for all of those, but I feel like I just see Satan spam in Hypercrypt just being the fucking king still, and that's what I'm worried about.
So
Andrew Kari.
we do have a couple of people in Poland that are playing like Catan spam for Catans, and it's such a sort of coin toss. I don't think more people will start moving towards that because armies will start catering and teching to kill Catans, and if you do, you can. So, for example, Halfguard will like almost solo one, if not solo one, if the dice go well. Many armies can, in fact, kill one in one go or kill two in one go if they plan for it. So they will need a mix of wise. They're going to start really struggling. In terms of the race, I'm not sure. I think we need to expect three things. One is the monolith. So I think people are starting to see the value of monolith being in a hypercrypt. The other thing is, as you said, wraiths and then Catans, which is three different profiles and three different like kind of weapons you need to deal with. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
And we're segueing into this kind of like what has changed and everything. And just to reiterate, Necrons didn't have any change. Yes. No change.
Wild, isn't it? They nerfed World Eaters and they didn't touch Necrons at all. That's such a weird decision. That's such a choice.
Yep. I was going to say, do we think because of that we're about to enter the world of Necrons for a
100%.
little while?
Yeah. Oh my God. Necrons are going to, I think they're going to just top everything.
I saw a statistic ages ago. I think they're like the second most popular army in the game because they were so cheap when it launched in 9th that most people have.
That's a good point. It's not even that they're really good, and it's not that they didn't get hurt by the status slate, but so many people own them probably. So it's like, GP, what were you going to say, buddy?
So, I mean, with that, are there any things from Necrons that players should be looking at? Any specific units that they should be teching in to look at? Besides, do we think 3 Catan is still going to be incredibly popular now because of Necrons?
No.
Dude, I just played against 5 Catan last weekend, and it was terrible. It was the most unfun game because, dude, Hypercrypt and Catan is quite frankly, whoever thought of that was okay thing to drop a Catan 3 inches from something. Stupid. I hate it so much. Fuck you, Ronnie, for playing that list.
I think this is the wrong question to ask. I think the question to ask is if you go to a tournament, what are you most likely going to see on the top and the middle tables? On the middle tables, it's going to be 4 or 5 Catans. Because they are obnoxious and it's really hard, but they will come into armies that can just crush them. And they'll languish around the middle tables, which is not ideal. I do think top tables will be like 2 Catans, definitely, or maybe even just 1, which is always going to be the Voidbringer. Voidbringer, yeah.
Or Night, is it Void Dragon or Nightbringer?
Voidbringer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just going to merge them into one, sorry. Void Dragon. Void Dragon. Because he's just like, this Void Dragon is one of the reasons why I just can't even use a Fortress right now. He'll just one-tap a Fortress. And he
one-taps a lot of things.
Yeah, but like, if he one-taps a Sagittarius, it's 115 points, right? If he one-taps a Fortress, it's a bit more.
Sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. No, for sure. I think that's a very good point. I'm very surprised. Because I feel like when we were looking at early Necron coming out in Canoptic Court, Wraith, the conversation on Wraith was very big because a lot of people were like spamming them. But even do you think they're still going to be spamming them now? Since something is probably not as much, right?
It's hard to say. I think Canoptic Court is harder to play properly. Because you've got to really utilize the tricks, but it's also, if your opponent understands the tricks, it's easy to play around.
Sure.
Whereas Hypercrypt is like, I'm just going to throw whatever I want at you 3 inches away, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And
for sure,
if we start seeing a lot more heavy destroyers with anti-vehicle, we're going to start having some serious problems. So I think that is going to be more. And we're in a vehicle meta, and I think we will continue to be in a vehicle meta with transportation. So, I would, especially with Drukhari, I do think we'll start having some issues with Necrons playing heavy destroyers.
And I think in terms of the other top dogs that we've seen, Chaos Space Marines, Eldar, Black Templars, they all took quite significant hits, especially Chaos Space Marines. I think that might have been a bit much with some of the points hikes that they did. I think the rules so like in terms of rules changes, they made it so that only the same marks can go in if you have an infantry.
such a
I
good
almost
change.
I almost even just said it's a bloody good change.
See, I'm glad that for your notes you took this professionally for CSM and you wrote out what their changes are, because the notes that I wrote down for CSM, I have big notes for every other class, but for CSM I just wrote GW slapped them on the wiener, because CSM just they got hit hard. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but they got hit hard. So besides the rhinos, you can't do that. They also took a big change to accursed cultists.
Yes,
In
cultists and
multiple
dark commune
forms.
got hit hard points wise, and also
They lost an OC, right?
yeah,
And they only regenerate once per turn?
yeah.
Crazy.
I actually don't think they're dead in the water. I just think you don't take 30 of them anymore.
I mean, you can still take 20 because it's still a really good sort of
Still a
target
great
unit.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think a good CSM player will still come back from this. They just won't have as much in the arsenal. They're probably just not going to win as much as they were.
I still think CSM are going to be really good. I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of people across the internet saying, "Oh, CSM's really bad," or the output's died, but it really hasn't.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be so auto win in some games, I would
Yeah.
say, which is good. And Forge
Yeah,
Fiends
I agree.
aren't going to be just like notoriously sat there, can't shoot them, and just wipe half your army.
Oh my God! Yes,
Yep.
thank God. What if it, truly the Nurgle strat was a pretty feels bad moment a lot. Like it's hard. It was hard to plan for that when you had to worry about it on so many units. So I think those changes, quite frankly,
Yeah,
they were pretty harsh, but they'll be fine.
they were fair. CSM was really kind of shoehorning itself into this hyper-aggression build where, that did reward higher skilled players, but a lot of it was too much synergy all at once. Not nearly as bad as Eldar. I think we can all say that 10th edition Eldar has been probably the most overpowered thing we've ever seen before, and they got some changes too, right? So
Yeah.
for Eldar, they only get 6 fate dice now instead of God knows however many they had before.
Yeah, what was it? Was it 10?
It felt like they could stack
it
the
8?
table. It was
It was
a
12.
lot.
No, it was
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
It was fucking 12.
Yep. Fate's Messenger got nerfed. No longer affects the unit, just the person with it. Phantasm, which is a stratagem that has to have been
Big.
changed like every single update
Thank
they've
God.
tried to change this. Phantasm is now just D6 instead of auto 7. Good.
Thank God.
Insane.
Thank God. The best stratagem that's probably ever existed.
Night Spinners, those no longer just are the only unit in the entire game that just turned off advance and charge. But they also got a massive point increase. I think I can speak for every non-elf Warhammer player and say, good. Put
Yes.
those things on a shelf, set them on fire. I don't want to see them again for another 2 editions. It's
Yes.
time.
I'm still
the
annoyed that they
incarn-
got the same debuff that our Berserkers get, but our Berserkers have to roll a 4+, and theirs is
We
insane.
had to fucking roll for it, dude.
You have to hit on a 5. It's like a 20% chance of it happening. The Incarn got shut down just a little bit because now it can only teleport on the user's turn. So that's something, right?
No, truly. I think I think a lot of these changes, they don't feel, well, they feel right. I still think Eldar will still be strong.
So,
Yep.
for me, I've seen people play Eldar without any Wraithguard, without any Incarnate, and I swear to God, it's better. I actually don't think
I don't
Eldar
disagree.
got that much of a nerf. Phantasm was
You know what they
fantastic.
didn't change? But
That
they
was
didn't
a
change
big
at all, but it's still really good. Shadow Specters. They didn't get any point changes. They're great.
Yeah.
They're still just
Yeah.
good.
So,
Yeah, the book is so deep. You can't hit everything. There's just so much, and it's all good.
yeah, they're still going to be S tier, Eldar. The Phantasm change is really good. I welcome that because it also means there's risk added to them positioning, but it's still like
Truly.
they can't use it so offensively. It'd be a defensive strat now, but it's still what's the word? They're still going to be really good. They're still going to be S tier.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
So.
Agreed.
It's gonna so for things like Phantasm, they have to be slightly more reserved, but they can just play more tactically, and they're like, all right, well, I can just keep this infantry unit 1 or 2 inches away from the wall and just go through it that way, instead of I can be 6 inches out and then just pop through. They can still do it and ensure that they will always get it if they're cerebral about it, but it's not going to be as egregious.
You have to set it up. You have to be way more thoughtful about setting it up. If your guys are too far out, and before you knew you can get that 7 inches to hide them if you needed, now you better make sure they're at least like 3 inches out or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you better be preparing for it. I think another interesting hit, which I think we all kind of seen coming, was Black Templars had a lot of points hikes on all their important things.
Yep.
I still think that army is very fine because it just means you're not taking as much chaff as you were. Maybe you're not taking the 20-man Crusader blob. But Sword
Templars
Brethren
were
went
good.
up. Yeah. Sword Brethren went up. Hellbrecht went up. No, Grimaldus, I think, went. I don't think Hellbrecht went
No,
up.
Hellbrecht
Templars
stayed
are
the
also
same.
interesting, right? Because Templars are in a spot that's, I think, much different than Eldar, where Templars has a lot larger of a casual player base. There's a lot of players that are just like, I like my black crazy Space Marines, and then they're pretty normal. But you still have a lot of people that are playing in a more competitive sense that were doing a lot with Black Templars, and they were
Sword Brothers,
very
they pointed
efficient.
something.
So-
It was deleted.
Yeah, so you have a lot of Black Templar players right now that might seem a little bit more confused than some of the other factions, but it's you got to give that perspective that at a competitive level, they were doing very well.
Yeah, for sure.
Hellbrecht
I think
went up
they were the best
120.
Space Marines. Hellbrecht went up 120
No,
points?
no, he went. Sorry, he went up to 120.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's still
Checking
like
those.
one of the best Space Marine infantry characters for punching, right? Like he's really strong.
Without a doubt.
He's fucking insane, isn't
Now for the other Marines though, we saw Blood Angels got buffed.
Dude, you mean Blood Angels are the better world leaders now?
Yeah, we're looking at +2 strength on the charge, so strength 6 chain swords with +1 attack. Blood Angels might be kind of a thing.
Dude,
And then
I'm
we
so
had-
mad about that change.
It's pretty good. And we also had Grey Knights, of all things. Their Dread Knights, Nemesis and Grandmaster, their weapons got some big buffs.
Much better. Yeah, much better. Also, dude, the 10-point nerf on the Librarian was so funny. Like, that's the only nerf they caught.
Yep.
So funny to me. That is definitely like... Yeah, I played against Triple Librarian. Triple Vortex of Doom is not fun.
I'm
everyone.
not sure with you, but I'm not sure 10-point increase is gonna just 10-point increase is gonna deter you from taking triple librarian.
Oh, it doesn't do anything.
Sure. No.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
just
It
means you probably
doesn't
don't
do
take a strike
anything.
squad or an assassin or I don't know. I don't know. You probably still take the assassin because they score for you, but it was really funny. That's really funny.
And then we saw Space Wolves. They get their sagas off a little bit easier now. I don't think that matters. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone doing anything with Space Wolves. People talk about them as a melee army. It's because, okay, so dialing it back, we also know that World Leaders, they got hit hard on several fronts. So the Executioner's Glaive no longer turns a mash of Executioners into a crazy fucker. It's funny because earlier this week I had made a joke about World Leaders and Danny was like, nope, I have a feeling you're going to be disappointed. And it's like, all right, that's, you know what, that's fair. And on some of these things, because it was getting more and more popular, we saw the crazy results that Vanilla and others were putting up with it. You got nerfs on Exalted 8-Bound. You got nerfs to Favorite of Corn only once per game instead of once per turn. That's crazy. The Glaive got more expensive and
Did
got
the Demon
shut
Prince
down.
involved?
Demon
Going
Prince
from
as
4
well.
to 5?
Just to add salt into the wound, they just changed the Demon Prince.
Truly. They're like, oh, do you want to change your build from 8-Bound to Jackals? Well, fuck you.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but because of that, right? So there aren't a lot of pure melee armies that are out there. And I know from my perspective as the Chaos Knights guy, I'm kind of looking at some interesting builds because I'm like, I'm not afraid of World Leaders now. I don't think I'm going to see as many out there. Could I possibly play with some stuff? Do we think that Space Wolves, might we see more of them now? Are we going to see more Blood Angels?
Dude, we're about to move into an Orc and Drukhari fucking world with melee. It is about to be...
I don't know. I do think Space Wolves do have play.
I'm sure they do.
I
I
think-
think Orcs and Drukhari are going to be what we're scared of.
Yeah, probably. Drukhari 100%. It's a bit too early to tell, but like I've seen a couple of people test it now, and it's definitely sort of up there. It might even
I think
be on
Drukhari's
the
a
edge
good
of
one,
S tier if people sort of finalize the right build.
A lot of people don't immediately jump to the idea of melee for Drukhari, but for anyone who also wasn't following along, one of their ways to look at how Drukhari had a pretty low power spike and they weren't performing well lately is GW said, all right, balance is hard, we get it, this detachment's not great, and instead of fixing it, they just gave him a new one.
A new I'm so flabbergasted. That's like interesting to me because this whole new like detachment, the way that they set up detachment 10th edition, I feel like that was very extreme from them.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised they gave a whole new detachment without changing the detachment.
And it seems good. It seems really good.
Incubi with an Archon. 30 attacks with Lance, damage 2, rerolling wounds.
And AP3.
That is going to kill it. That's
going to AP3, AP2. I think it's AP3.
Listen, 2 or 3 is really good.
Yeah.
3 is just icing on the cake. Like, that is going to shred.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to shred things. Shred. I think Drukhar is going to do very... I think orcs are going to... I fucking hate orcs so much. I think orcs are going to be a big problem.
I'm not sure.
I hate orcs in general, so I never want to see an orc across from me at any table. So what makes you think orcs are going to pop up?
So if we look at...
I can't believe they took Squighog boys out of everything in there. They just took Squiggies. That's so sad.
Did you see? They got so many buffs. It's wild how many things went down in points. And it's not, granted, these aren't things that people were like spamming a lot of. But I think, yeah, right. Squighog boys going up a bit. And Truck's barely going up anything.
Yeah, Truck's going up 5 points is like nothing, right?
Yeah. I think the 2 biggest deals were Killicans and Killrigs going down. 2 things that Killrigs we didn't see much play of anymore, but like Killicans every once in a while you did. I think that they were already in a good place for good players. The problem with orcs is most people that play them are like either a 12-year-old screaming wog or a 50-year-old screaming wog, and they just throw everything on at once.
There's literally no middle, is there? There's no middle ground.
There is one middle. There is one middle, and it's Sean Naden.
Okay, yeah, that's true. He doesn't scream wog, does he?
So like. Yeah, I feel like the people that do well with orcs are fucking stoked right now. But I don't know. I just think... So I think to talk about the data slate and talk about armies, why some got hit, why someone got hit, like why Worlders got hit, I think what GW looks at is when we take down the top dogs, who will then fill that space after? Like how kind of like... Who's going to like... be the problem if some things go down. Yeah, and I think in their head world leaders may have been.
I don't know. I wouldn't say world leaders, because world leaders still only function the 1 phase. Well, 2 phases. In the same way,
right, they have a go turn and then they have a cleanup turn.
It's more that like they're really good at the movement phase and they're really good at the fight.
Oh,
phase,
sure,
but
sorry.
They don't. And yeah, of course, like you say, if they can go early, but then they sort of run out of units over the course of the game. But I don't see a world where they're like the best army in the game.
No. I don't either. But I do think But what I was, you're probably not, right? And maybe that's not what Games Workshop was thinking. That's in my head what they might have been thinking.
It's very possible because it makes some sense.
Sure, but I think orcs are just another plentiful army that a lot of people have, and I think them not catching any shade is a chance to, especially with some other things catching shade. I think there's a chance for orcs to kind of fill in a gap within the melee world, in my opinion.
I still think they're sort of checked by Death Guard. And then, yes, here's the other thing. Sure. Custodes is sort of back on the rise, right?
Yes. Which is going to be a problem for pretty much every melee army. It will be Custodes just because they will out-melee you with a lot of their fight first and high toughness, like saving on everything. I do think... I mean, that's a good point to go into as Custodes. I haven't looked at the changes Custodes. I don't know if any of you...
So I did. So Custodes got one big sweeping rule update, which is actually interesting, especially against us, because it used to be one of our greatest things against them. Custodes got their 4-up Feel No Pain back against devastating wounds. So you're no longer just going to point a Volkite unit of Hearthguard at a blob of Custodes, no matter how large, and be like, hey, pick up half of it, homie.
Right.
It's just not there anymore. That's a big deal for Custodes. Huge. And Custodes in particular are always worth discussing, because Custodes are 2 things. They are cheap and accessible for people to get into for collecting, painting, and building for an event, and they travel well. So to any major you're going to go to, any GT, you can expect every dad of low to high strength is going to be rolling up with their backpack full of Custodes that they built and painted in like 3 days because it's 30 models for a 2K list.
You 100% have a Custodes army, don't you? You absolutely do. I can see that.
Nope, I don't. No? I don't. I have many other armies, but I don't have Custodes. But you will always see them, so they're always worth talking about. They're like knights. A lot of people have knights. People bring knights, even if they're just like a ringer thing. They're like, I'm going to drink a couple beers. I have knights. I play that. But it's... Custodes travel very well.
They do. Yeah. I think
That might not be as big of a deal in Europe, to be honest. But in the U.S., it's like if you want to go to a GT, you're either driving like 13 hours across multiple states, or you're getting on a plane to Texas for 3 hours. So
yeah, I wish we had rails.
We lack the God's chosen form of transportation known as trains because America hates itself. So we can't get anywhere.
Truly. And also, they did get some nice points. They got some points buffs. It is hilarious. Like 40 points down on the Dawn Eagle jet bike shield captain. Probably still not gonna see him, but like it's fine. I do think Custodes are gonna really house the melee world for a bit, and just durability. They're just so durable. But I think the thing about going into if melee stuff, like if we see Drukhari and Custodes, I do think Berserks are on our side. Berserks are a little bit more helpful, even though it sucks. It's only on a 4-up. Fight first, still, there is a little bit more, I would hope, some scare into charging them because of that threat that any failed save against a Berserk is a dead Custode. Unless it's the one who has 4 wounds. Yeah, who is it? Is it? Oh, no, actually, fucking all of them really do, don't they? Jesus, never mind.
Yeah, because they can take the 4 wounds, right?
Yeah. So, fuck, I forgot they have 4. Fuck Custodes, because they're dumb.
Actually, I think Custodes is probably one of the biggest problems for Votann at the minute.
Yeah.
Because they also, again, they just wreck transports. They'll just wreck the fortresses flat out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a problem. We need to see how it shapes it, but like they're getting their 4-man units down to like 180 or 200 for 4 wardens is really good value. So.
I do want to talk about one of my favorite changes, and has actually, GP, I don't know if you thought about this.
Yeah.
But demons, corn demons kind of slap, dude.
Yeah, so it's funny because I had a couple buddies that they were all sharing pictures in like our Neo chat for the Northeast, where they brought their blood letters out on like a plate, and it's like it's time for them to see the sun again. But I want to note one other thing about demons really quick, is that demons had an ally change, which is
true.
Huge. So the way that demons work now is you can only add as many demon units as you have battle line. So for all Chaos armies, you're not going to see in things like Chaos Knights anymore, where people are just like, I'm just going to throw in the Changeling and the Blue Scribes. To do that, you'd have to add 2 units of Blue Horrors, which there's no chance you're going to do that anymore.
That'd be the silliest thing.
It's not good. You'll still see Nurglings, but that's it. But like if you wanted to add, a few people were talking like, hey, is it actually worthwhile to bring like a Keeper of Secrets in some of these places, because they're mathematically a really good unit, but to bring them, you'd also have to take a unit of Daemonettes.
Yeah.
So Demon Allies kind of got the kibosh on them completely.
Yeah. However, Imperium can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. Yeah, it's fine. But I think demons might be interesting because the monster mash style of demons lists, you just kind of bleed every secondary on the planet. I haven't ever had a ton of faith in that list, even though some people have played it to success. I think we might see some things where some forms of maybe Khorne demons might have some play.
Before the data slate, because we have a couple people playing it in Poland, I kind of dabbled a bit into Khorne demons myself. And I tell you what, getting your blood letters to like AP 5, damage 5 is a absolute drug. Like, it's really funny. What strength? What, AP 5, damage 5 or something. So
and for 120 points for 10, that seems pretty good.
Well, also the big deal about it, in another change in the data slate, I'm going to try to find it real quick from the commentary, is how abilities can stack, and specifically. Or is it auras? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There was a change about stacking auras and how you're allowed to. And I think the big deal for demons is like what the Ren Master's ability can be stacked, which means that your fiends, or not fiends, your fleshhounds can do some crazy shit like 1 million attacks, strength 8, AP 4 damage, or some stupid thing. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm going to find that. But there was a change about how abilities are allowed, or auras allowed to be stacked, and it's something like, if it is a named thing, they cannot stack, but if not, it's okay, I think it was. Do you guys remember what we're talking about?
I know which one you're talking about. I'm just trying to find it.
Because it was kind of like a thing on the back burner, or like on this, like on the end, like at the low end of things that I kind of cared about. But in this specific instance, I think is why Corn Demons are pretty tight.
I'm not sure.
I know
fine.
what you're talking about. I don't know where it is in the actual site. Oh, abilities with the same name. It's the first page. The first page.
The first
thing. So excluding aura abilities with the same name, excluding aura, can affect multiple times. So you've got the what's it called? I'm trying to think of his name. So it's not the chariot. It's called somebody.
The demon?
Yeah, the corn demon. What's it called?
Oh yeah, it's that cool ass blood letter on top of the chariot.
Yeah.
right?
I forgot his name, but basically,
Skull Throne.
I think it's Skull Throne. Yeah.
Skull.
So
It's
Yeah.
tight, whatever
All
it
I
is.
know is that I was hoping to use Skull Cannons for my Chaos Knights, but they got no point change despite appearing in 0 lists ever for all of 10th. So
maybe they just don't want you to use them. I don't know.
They don't want you to use specifically.
I
Like,
own
fuck that
3 of
guy.
them, so clearly they're spiting just me.
You could take a 305-point Scarborough though.
Ooh.
Dude, those big demons
I think
looking tasty.
I think things like Kairos is well worth the points. And I think he's well worth the points, perhaps. To
Kairos is
consider,
great. But to take him now, you're going to also have to make sure you take a unit of blue or pink horrors.
I mean, they're not terrible.
Well, to be honest,
though.
but also like I feel like if you obviously the mono faction purists will want to do Corn only, but if honestly I think this really does bring up. I think we'll see more disciples of Be'lakor. I think the Shadow of the Warp deal dropping in within his shadow and getting off like very short charges, because obviously right now the great thing about demons is if you're in the Shadow of the Warp you could drop way closer to get charges off way closer to deep strike, but with Be'lakor you could drop in his shadow instead if you don't have the mid build, if you don't have no man's land. Excuse me. I do think all those Corn heavy hitters with some tech pieces like a greater unclean one, I'm not even kidding you, to like help with some of those defenses, and then also Be'lakor to drop in closer if you don't have those points. I think demons might actually. I think the data slate was very good for demons and people who are good with demons, because I feel like not many people probably play demons. I don't really know. I don't like. I'm too lazy to look at that.
I know
stat,
that I have like 2 local demon players. They do great. It seems to be fine.
I think
they're
this
great
favored
players.
demons pretty well.
It's an interesting army. I don't think it's very popular. I mean, I have a whole Tzeentch Demons army that I played mostly in 7th and then at the beginning of 8th, and it was very fun then. But GW gets the flavor weird on demons.
Sure.
Corn they do well because it just has to smash, but Tzeentch doesn't ever feel like a wizard army. We're not actually casting spells, and they changed everything from how it was historically in the entire game, where you were casting tons of spells, to now you just shoot spell bullets, and it's like, all right, well, now I'm just a bad gunline army. This doesn't feel good. So I haven't touched them in like 2 editions.
That's that's very accurate.
But I have used them as allies, and I can talk about one right now, which was Chaos Knights. So Chaos Knights did see some changes. We saw point decreases on all of the major big knights, and we saw point increases on the Brigand. So that was the War Dog that everybody was taking.
About
the 2 massive
damn
guns.
time.
Yeah, okay, but here's the deal. Nothing changes. You still just take as many Brigands as possible, because Chaos Knights
You don't think big knights can see it?
No.
With the change? Really?
Nope.
Damn.
Nope.
That
I'll
sucks.
I'll get to the big ones in a second, but you still take Brigands, because Chaos Knights have one glaring issue, and it's that every goddamn gun they have is AP 1, and nothing ignores cover. The only knight in the entire army that gets extra AP is the Brigand. So it's the only one that's capable of being efficient. I will say, it went up 10, so it went from 160 to 170. They also brought the Executioner down from 150 to 140. I'm starting to consider the Executioner, because the Executioner has 8 Strength 9, AP 1, 3 damage shots.
I was about to say,
I know
what the hell is an Executioner? I've not seen anyone play it.
I'm literally Googling it right now.
Yeah. They have a 48-inch range, BS 3, Strength 9, AP 1, 3 damage. Now, it's AP 1, so that's garbage against most things, but it's a 48-inch range. It's the longest range in the whole Chaos Knights range army, and its ability is against half-strength targets. So if you're fighting something big, like a Catan, if they lose even 1 wound, you're hitting on 2s, you're wounding on 3s, they're going to reduce the damage by 1, so you're doing 2 wounds each, but into a lot of targets that are just relying on invuln saves or that don't have super high armor saves,
sure.
AP1, even with cover, it's like, hey, I just hit you statistically 6 times. I wounded you 4 of those. So just pass some saves or you're going to take like 6-9 damage like we had Sweet Lou in our last podcast.
I was seconds away from saying, like, does that also argument also... I mean, honestly, I would be more into... beamers if they just had longer range. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so
anything that fails at invuln or fails at save.
No, listen, I'm there too. I think AP1 is bad, and Games Workshop won't fix that for Chaos Knights, and they're doomed to remain boring. But here's the big one. The big Knights. You can take 5. That's funny. You can take 3 Rampagers and 2 Desecrators, and it fits within 2,000. That's funny. No. The big Knights went down, but they went down like 30 points. But again, you're playing a Knight army. 30 points doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't fit another unit in.
Yeah, but now you've got a big points gap because you've no longer got your demons in there. So you can fit in another model.
Yeah, you could take another unit of Nurglings because you can't take any other demons. So they just kind of made it
Nurglings
weirder.
aren't affected by the battle line thing?
They are battle line.
No, because Nurglings are battle line.
Oh, they are battle line.
And that's the only demon anyone took anyway. The change didn't do anything.
They go up to 40 points though, which is nice.
Yeah, which is totally fine.
Fair. It's fair. Everyone was using the shot.
There are 2 big Knights. There are 2 big Knights that I think you're going to see more of, and you won't see them. Well, I mean, you might see them on Imperial, but for both Chaos and Imperial, the Lancer. The Lancer came down in points. The Lancer already had potential because of how much it moved, and with full tilt or with Knights of Shade, could either move so quickly or through terrain. Its points came down, making it pretty efficient across the board for the Knight Lancer. It has an invuln in melee. It slaps pretty hard. Its guns, whatever. But it can also get a free tank shock. You can double tank shock with 2 of them. They're pretty good. There are some two Knight Lancer lists that are out there. But for Chaos specifically, one that you might see is the Castigator. The Castigator is the one with the sword and the big gun. The gun is 18 shot, strength 6, AP2, 2 damage, twin linked. Wow. So it re-rolls. It also has an ability called Suppressive Fire. So if it shoots a unit until next turn, it has -1 to be hit. Or rather, -1 to hit. So you just kind of point at a unit, shoot it 18 times, and then you debuff it for a whole turn. Now, the other thing that the Chaos one specifically gives,
so stoked.
In a bubble around it, it's because I have one. I've already built the list for it. It's a 6-inch bubble. It gives everything sustained hits 1. So we were talking before that you still are taking Brigands, and then you have things like the Executioner, maybe. All of a sudden, if you have 5 Executioners, 40... ballistic skill 2 or 3, strength 9, AP1, 3 damage shots with sustained hits 1. It might be a thing. It sounds neat. It's still AP1.
He's so excited about this, and then he's going to put it, and turn 1 it's going to die.
Yeah, so you're just so that brings us to the main thing, right? For Chaos Knights, it's unchanged. You're just going to play 13 War Dogs.
You're gonna
That's
play
it.
this,
Literally, they made Brigands more expensive, and it's like, all right, well, I'm still just going to take them.
Yeah.
Were
there any other Shining Star factions y'all saw that came out of this, maybe? Or, I don't know. I don't really know what to think about the rest of them.
I can say one that got hit in ways that maybe people didn't expect, but Tau also got hit.
You really think they got hit?
Crisis suits got more expensive, and I think they either clarified the intent with Hazardous, or Hazardous is now even more detrimental. There's something about Hazardous.
Did they change Hazardous?
Yeah, so if you overcharge with your commander, so you can't now just like overcharge with your commander and pass it off onto somebody else.
Got it.
The changes are a bit odd. Riptides are a bit maybe too cheap at 165 points now. And Crisis went up 20 per 3, which is a bit odd.
Yeah,
but
Crisis are 400 points for 6 now. They're expensive, baby.
You still take them, though. I mean, they're still too useful.
I mean,
right?
you kind of have to, because like you need them to kill Catans, right? Nothing else in that army will kill Catans. Oh, apart from breaches, but people have sort of learned that if you don't stand on the objective, they don't reroll wounds.
Right.
Shocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Tau's that bad though. I think Tau will probably come out of this in the same sense of Votann, that they've come out like bandits. I think Tau is way better than the win ratio. Tau just has the one problem in like a WTC setting where points differential is just screws you over because they just bring it down in homers and they just end the game or start the game with 35 in the second day. So
it's also worth noting for any of our viewers or listeners at home, but Mr. Porter was also the first person to win a GT with Tau in all of 10th and prove everyone wrong that they were bad. So if anyone has an opinion here that Tau might have legs, you're kind of listen to the opinion of it. So
Tau very good.
What'd you say?
Tau very good. Tau very good.
I think Tower will always. I think Tower kind of like orcs in a good hands of a good player. They're gonna smash a lot of people. I just feel like for some reason people aren't playing Tower right now. I don't know. I don't understand why that's the case.
I think because it's not an easy army, right? It's not. It's just not an easy army. You make a lot of mistakes. You do lose your units, and
sure.
They also get hard countered by a number of things. So I won't go on a rant like before, but statistically, according to StatCheck and other sources, really big gatekeeper armies like Chaos Knights just have like an 80% plus win rate into them. They just filter Tau out because there's almost nothing they can do. So they have some pretty bad matchups. But it'll be interesting.
Well, also the scoring too. The point about scoring is actually, you know what? That's probably even the biggest is the fact that it's just an auto. I'm bringing it down. I'm going to do either deploy or cleanse mission dependent or something, and then GG. You
know what we didn't talk about at all? What do we think right now about Tyranids and Genestealer Cult? I know that for Tyranids, I've seen a lot of people really excited because Tyrannifexes went down, and people are losing their mind on Tyrannifexes.
Dude, Tyranids is the second army I hate, second to orcs.
I think Genestealer Cult, we only saw, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we only saw Pure Strains come down.
GC actually got a minor buff and a minor sort of nerf at the same time in the same buff. The changes to how Deep Strike works and how you're positioned means when you Deep Strike down, someone can't just move away from you if you come in within 9 inches. So they can't get away from acolytes anymore.
You mean like, for instance, you're talking about like the Necron strat where you can run away?
Exactly. So you can drop down 6, drop down to Necrolites, and then Race can't run away anymore because you've not finished a move, even though you have. But at the same time, that also means that it doesn't work for the Saboteur. So it's like a buff and a nerf.
Wait, was that a clarification they made?
Yeah, that's in the...
Coming in for Deep does not count as finishing a move?
Where is it? Because I don't want to misspeak and then have angry viewers telling me I'm stupid. But it's around this.
I'm sure someone will call it stupid anyway.
That's fine.
You're fine.
It's standard sort of.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, we've so far had a very great audience, so I don't even want to make it out like there's troll. We haven't got like any troll stuff yet. Which now I'm asking for it.
Everybody's great. Our listeners are all swell folks.
It's probably on the first page as well, isn't it? But everything seems to be on the first page. Adding models to a unit. This is actually another buff for GSC. So originally you couldn't add a model to a unit if you bring it up on the table and bring it back down. Now they've clarified that you can.
Oh yeah.
Because the reason is you had to have them in coherency, and if they come down, if they come down, they're not in coherency. So they can res, but they've removed that for units that do that aren't currently on the battlefield. So that's a really good buff. Arrival from strategic reserves. That's another buff as well. Is it allows GSC if they go second to pick up like some units and then come down turn 1, which is massive. And then the other one, count as having made a normal move. So your reserve units always count as having made a normal move, but they don't count as having what is it? I'm trying to do this properly. Wait, reserve always count as having a normal move.
Yep.
But they've not made a normal move. That makes no sense. Either way, it says here the rival cannot trigger stratagems or abilities that are used after a unit's made a normal move.
Yep.
So that's the clarification.
So you can't overwatch them when they come in.
No, you can overwatch them because they're being set up. But you can't just like...
Oh, and Overwatch specifically says that, right? Or something.
But you can't just like have your Wraiths just run away and then just get away from your 10 demo charge acolytes, which is really sad. So.
Now, an interesting thing that they also clarified in the rules, which I don't think like anyone was expecting this, but they made a point that battle-shocked units can't be revived within battle shock.
Wait, that's a change?
They added it within within the rules commentary for battle shock. I think it says something along the lines of a unit that's battle shocked cannot be revived.
I'm trying to find it now.
It was a big thing. I was reading about it, and again, we can roll our eyes at it, but I was reading about it on the Warhammer competitive subreddit yesterday that everybody was talking about, that it's one of the things that got clarified. But, we don't have to break into that one now if we think it's going to eat too much time, but it was an interesting...
And that'll be huge.
Piece from the rules commentary.
That'll really make Battle Shock more important for net.
I don't see it in this. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's not in Battle Shock.
No, that's fair.
Maybe it's adding models to a unit. That was a different section, because you can't have everything in the same place, can you? They really force you to read this whole article, don't they?
They don't make it easy, and they also keep things from the last update also in red, so you can't tell if it's new with this one.
Why don't they do it like color coded?
I don't know.
Because that would confuse people even more if there's like 5 different colors.
I guess so.
I don't know. We'll skip that one for now because it's going to take too much time.
Yeah.
But just know that there's some wonkiness, and people could either be confused or there could be a change. Who knows?
Yeah. And I think this is actually a good point that whenever you're playing someone, down a Slate coming out recently or not, if you were confused or question something they have, please ask them to show it to you. Like, truly. So if that, I feel like that is the most important thing. Always be asking. I just played RTT a weekend ago, and I was playing against a invasion fleet Tyrannid list, which I drew. I'm still upset about it. But he was like, "Oh, my Norn can advance and shoot," and I was like, "Well, I know you can advance and charge. That doesn't sound right about advance and shooting. That fucking thing has meltas. Please show me." And then I was like, "Oh wait, no, I was wrong."
My favorite though is like you can fall back and throw a grenade.
Oh.
And the amount of times,
really?
and the amount of times, because it doesn't say anything about you're able to shoot. It just says you haven't shot.
Nice.
So that's always a fun one for me, because that's like
that's
wordly
hilarious.
completely different from everything else in the game.
Oh yeah.
If there's no other faction stuff we talk about, I think I would like to segue before we end on talking about some other. I know because Danny, you talked about your list. I think a list I would like the list I'm looking at specifically. I would like to talk about, especially going into, like, for instance, like this teams event I'm doing in April. I think. Well, actually, were there any other factions we want to talk about? Any ones that stood out?
I think we covered the big ones. I think Sisters had some small changes, but nothing.
Yeah, some of the
crazy.
combos I think you can't do as much anymore, or something. Something about a combo changed, if I believe. My one buddy, who's a Sister player, was upset. I don't know, but he's always upset. He plays Sisters. I don't know.
Well, so I guess as a final thing, first to end this whole other faction topic on, do we think that we're going to have a decent shakeup? Are we happy with the changes that we've seen so far? 2 other factions, do we think that they still missed anything besides Necrons? Do we think anything might be concerning or show up as divergent from how things are currently played? I think we might see some Dark Eldar, man. I think we're going to see Dark Eldar come out. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but I think we're going to see a lot of Eldar players suddenly test out Dark Eldar in the next few weeks.
I agree. I think the next few weeks we're going to see a big jump in that. I don't think Eldar are dead, like, just as a faction. I think just people will play them less. I really do. I don't think it's like dead in the water. People aren't going to, it's bad, we shouldn't play them. But I will think people will probably shift to some other armies. I do.
I think the better players and the diehard fans will stay there. But I agree. I think it's no longer an army that can just sort of push someone over the finish line without any real effort. So.
I also think, I mean, just from what we've seen, I think non-orc melee, we might be seeing less melee out there right now, and I'll be
except
curious. Except for Custodes. Melee,
Custodes.
Custodes and orcs, and again, I mentioned before, you're always going to see Custodes, but I'm curious to see if that's going to have some impact on some mechanized lists. So you might see more tanks because they're not going to be worried about World Eaters running 32 inches across the board turn 1 and tagging them as much as you might have started to see. So That's just if I were to hedge a bet. I think
Which is funny because we're already in a pretty mechanized meta.
Yeah, and I think it got a little bit of a buff because there's even less melee now to impact most of it. So you might even see more knights out there.
My concern is I think we'll start seeing Eldar pick up fire dragons and all the anti-tank, and if they do, they're going to be a problem.
That's the other thing that I've seen Eldar players talking about is fire dragons. So it's interesting.
Sure. That's fair.
Yeah, so this is another reason why, again, I just don't think we can realistically pick up fortresses. I think we're just going to keep dying, and that's not ideal. Yeah.
Can't do it. I have 3. They're just sitting half painted. I can't. I want to. I desperately wanted to play a 6 Sagittar 3 Fortress build that I thought was kind of funny. I don't think it was good, but I thought it was funny. But I don't have the heart in me to paint them when I know that they're just going to die instantly every time. All right, Don, bring us back. You got a list. What do we think you're looking at right now?
Yeah, what I'm looking at least what I'm going to be testing the next month, is No Call, which hurts my soul because I love lethals. I love lethals on Hearthguard. I love them. But Hammer Champ with Grim, a Iron Master, 2x10 Warriors, 5 Sagittars, 2 Berserks, 1x10 Hearthguard, and then 3x6 bikes. It is, in my head, good for alpha striking, but it's also good to kind of chill back and score if I need to, and that's where both the Iron Master and the Warriors come in. So if I want to throw like a single bike squad up to get some of my CP, or maybe try to take out something a little like maybe that was misdeployed or something that like is peeking out a little bit, they could easily do that with Saints too, unless it's like something that like, you know, can survive it. Like there are things that can survive it, but I do think that in my head that this is where we're going to be sitting in terms of a good mix between killy and also being able to score. Because I feel like we're going to see a lot of people drop Warriors, which makes sense. I mean, Danny, you've already even looked at dropping Warriors. I think Warriors will probably drop a little bit with the increase in Sagittars, which, you know, we did we're hoping that at least Warriors might have went down and Sagittars went up. Unfortunately, that dream died. But I still think they, like, I think Glare is a everything you said about Glare, I agree with 100%, like, without a doubt. And hopefully my extra Warriors in there will be the buffer that I don't have for Glare, them dying if they die. But that's the thing, is people just don't, maybe you don't shoot them, I don't know. But I think what's probably going to happen for me is I'll probably drop to 15 bikes, take the Iron Master out, and maybe put another character in with Glare. We'll see. I think, again, like, we have a new data slate, I'm going to be testing it. This is what I'm testing. I'm shifting from big blob, like my 2 big blobs of Hearthguard and a 6 Sagittar, to now my bikes being my maybe shining star here, because bikes can do a lot of stuff. Even though unfortunately, you know, Magna Coils get shit by, like, you know, Catan, for instance, or, you know, Yinkarn or whatever, like half damage things. Still a lot of shots. We're still talking like a lot of shots, AP1 ignoring cover. And not everybody has -1 AP ability. A lot do. A lot do more than they probably should. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think bikes were already amazing, and quite frankly, since they didn't get hit, I think they are better. And that's not that they gained anything, but since they didn't get hit, technically, I think they're better than they were.
No, I agree. I've always said that bikes are the best thing in the index, and I think they've gone even better.
Yeah, I think
my concern is how flimsy they are. Like, I want to run 18. Well, first of all, like, terrain is important. So, like, if you're in the US and you've got a bit more open terrain, which they do, or you've got player place terrain, then bikes are really good. If you play on WTC, then it's a bit harder to sort of maneuver around the board.
Yeah.
However, my concern is Wraiths. Things like Wraiths, Drukhari, Eldar, they all pick up bikes quite easily. Even guard, which is like probably the most slept on army in the entire game. Their artillery will just pick up bikes, like
Very
that,
true.
right? It's
But the inverse also is, I think bikes do well into both guard. I think they do well into all those armies too, though, and that's the thing is. Really anything, dude. When I played the mirror at LVO against Votann, I thought I hit a bike squad good enough, and his bike squad came out, and his bike squad picked up my bike squad
that's
because they just couldn't save.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, and that's gonna be the difficult thing is, that's gonna be mostly what my practice is. My practice really isn't practicing this whole list; it's practicing how I play with this many bikes, which is hard.
Listen, I've said it before when I tested it, because Danny brought out some of the big 15, 18 bike lists before, and I tried it, and it was surprisingly hard to pilot it well. At least, in the couple games that I did, and I failed spectacularly in my first time trying it, because I just brought it to a whole 3-round event, and I was like, screw it, let's see how it goes. Oh, God, they died. Okay. They died.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hoping at least, have you seen the player packet for BFS, GP?
Not yet.
Dude, dense board.
Oh, yeah.
So my hope is more so, I know it's going to be hard to maneuver them. My hope is that they are kind of between picking them up and putting them down, and also if I want to alpha strike, that's kind of my hope with them. That's like my two thoughts with them.
Picking them up and putting them down as well, as I think people need to remember it only has to be within 6. One model has to be within 6. So you can string them all across the board wherever you need.
Yes. And also the fact that I know that with dense terrain means maneuvering them a little harder, but that also means saving them a little better too, with the ability to have like the...
If you're going to play on dense terrain and you want to play on mass bikes, you need more warriors. And the reason why you need to do that is what you need to do is you need to put your warriors on the inside of ruins, like perhaps blocking, so then your opponent has to go either around the ruin to get to you, or he has to charge through. And then if they charge through, you can have your bikes then pick up whatever unit comes through and things like that.
Yeah. And then they are a little bit better as a target for Overwatch with a 6 brick, obviously, and the ability to maybe farm the CP back, just a lot more shots. It's just shots. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like we're just talking shots. Against Wraiths, I think they do fairly well against Wraiths. Having that extra AP and that 2 damage with the Philoppanes against them is like, okay, like yeah, I'm still gonna have a lot coming through to you. I'm gonna be wounding on 3s when typically no one else, like not no one else, but like maybe a comparable unit might not be wounding on 3s against that, and then you're gonna be doing 2 dice every single Philippine. So like, I don't know. I think against Wraiths they're fairly well. I had to play super cagey. I think against things like Drukhari, even like World Leaders and Orcs, they're still like listen, World Leaders might be kind of like hit pretty hard there, but I still think they'll see a little bit of play here and there. Mm-hmm. I think Orcs the same thing, but I think against those armies, I think that if you play them a little conservative in some places, unless your opponent deploys like a fucking idiot, you're gonna be picking up a lot in those armies, like a lot. Do Custodes have armor contempt? No, right?
No. Yeah, -1 damage, and the Wardens can have a 4 Philippine.
Right. So at least again, we're talking volume, and like hopefully against Custodes saving on 3s instead. Ignoring that cover, maybe it will be a little better. And I think that's the thing is we're all gonna be testing a lot of different things the next month, because this is kind of an interesting. I think it was an interesting shakeup. I do think overall, hopefully this will trend positively. I don't know, Danny, on your end when you play like some of the more the higher events, if you're thinking the same thing. But I think that I do think overall this will hopefully trend positive. The status slate.
I think it's been really good. I think especially seeing them give Drukhari like a detachment, it shows that they're really thinking more outside the box than just points, which is really good.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, because traditionally it's not been that. It's been like, here's everything is cheaper for you or everything's more expensive for you. Yeah. Have fun, right? And the fact that they've typically only done a update as either points or as data sheet stuff, but this kind of had both, and not even only both, kind of a good clarification for a lot of rules that we've had questions about, and we've had to hope that the tournament we're going to answers that question about what it can do or not, right? And so I think it's a big deal for the game, whereas 10 years ago you didn't get anything for like 3 years an answer on things, right? I don't know, Sure. Yeah. The fact that they answered all these things is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's a big relief, to be honest.
Yeah. Any ending thoughts on what we hope happens in the next month? What are we afraid of? Or I don't want to play Necrons, and I don't want to play against demons either, really. I don't want to play against Khorne demons, to be honest. That's gonna be annoying, but I don't know. Any
Khorne demons aren't too bad, but the Necron thing is you're just gonna have to deal with it because a lot of people are gonna bring up Necrons.
Yep.
So
I know Necrons we're going to see a lot of. I never want to see orcs, but that's a personal thing.
Yeah,
but I think that's just true. I think we're just going to see a ton of Necrons. But honestly, give the Silver Boys some time in the sun. As long as it's
Give
not
them
an
some
elf.
time in the sun. They've had loads of time in the sun. Do you not remember 9th edition?
Brother, I'm stuck with elf supremacy reigning recent in my brain.
Yeah, but we don't need
as long
elves
as it's
2.0,
not...
do we?
No, we don't need to. I don't think they're close to 2.0.
Nah, they're not.
They're going to be
They're not.
strong, but, you know...
Yeah,
know.
Necrons aren't that strong. It's just more of a feels bad, like, dice
Sure.
issue than actual, like, tricks and shit that can outplay you.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I have faith that this made some interesting shakeups. I think more than anything, we just need codexes. I don't think this, like, once every month and a half release cadence for codexes is healthy for a competitive game. I mean, if they released every codex all at once, I'd buy all of them at once. But instead, they trickle around, and I end up doing stuff like I've done now, where I haven't played in like 2 months because I've just been waiting for the data slate, and it's like,
Dude,
all right,
agreed,
well.
100%. I would give anything if they just did more codexes more often. I don't know this whole like, well they'll sell more if they like filter. No, dude, that makes no sense to me. Give me everything. Jesus.
I'd buy them all. I don't care. GW, if you're listening, I buy every special edition codex. I'd buy them all at once if you release them at once.
I mean,
you're insane.
The quick reason why they don't do it is like they don't have the capacity to be able to release all the models at the same time.
Sure.
Yep.
But I do agree that it's been over 6 months and we've had 4 codexes.
It's two.
And 2 were on launch.
Necrons and Mech, yeah.
Yeah, Necrons, Admech, Tyranids, and Space Marines. So that's like, yeah, like you say, 1.5 months, and it's not enough at all.
Yeah.
Because the game will just get stale for a lot of players.
Yes.
Yeah, because even if they changed it, right? If they did something, this is just random ranting to end you with, but even if they changed it so we got like big bricks, like every quarter they released a bunch of codexes at the same time, but then we had like seasonal every like 4 months, so like 3 times a year. They're like, hey, here's a campaign. These are all the new models associated with this current campaign. Here's some rules. It's like, yeah, it's a thing. I would still, I don't know, but I worry that the trickle is
difficult to deal with because then like you've got a codex with all your current models and then extra bucks.
I am not a sales guy. Don't listen to me for anything. I just know that I would like rules to trickle out faster because armies like Votann right now, that we're in a weird spot because the way that the detachment works, or if we go things like Chaos Knights where they're just going to brute force everything and ignore their rules, they're stuck with rules that are unsavory and they have to wait like 1.5 years, and we're never going to know how it's going to go until they come out. Or Guard from last edition, right? Guard waited all that time for a codex and had it for a month. It's like, all right, sick.
Dude.
That seems a little flawed.
That must have been so feels bad.
Fuck that codex was ridiculous.
Truly.
Yes.
Right? With Kazakin and 18 mortal wounds every time they shot it. I'm okay with them getting rid of that, to be fair.
I'd love to send us off with one little nugget for viewers to chew on, and maybe for you guys to talk about as well. Did you hear about the new rumors for the new Votann box coming out? Yes. So the new box, for anyone that doesn't know about it, including Mr. Pastrami here, it's been teased by Mr. Valrak, who has had a really good record.
I don't fucking
he's had a very good track record lately. But it is going to be a combined box of Genestealer Cult with new Catachan upgrade sprues. With the new Catachan, so like a cool new Brood Brother for Genestealer Cult. And then the other unit in the box is Votann Hernkin Rangers. They're the guys that ride the bikes without being on the bikes. So we're looking at a potential new foot-based scouting infantry unit, which is one of the things that we've talked about before that the army could really use.
Hell yeah. No, I love it. Where'd you... Oh, man. Fucking Valrak.
So I heard this from other sources that was not... Because I don't follow this Valrak person, so... If
sure, that's fine,
two sources are correct, then...
Shots fired at me to Valrak.
I'm
only salty because one time he trolled everyone. Okay, first off, you know Valrak. His content's actually not bad. It is fun if you kind of like that sensationalist.
It's tongue in cheek. Yeah, he's being loud on purpose.
He once was like, "I'll show you guys leaks if you follow or do whatever."
Pay me, if you sub.
Yeah, and I did all that shit, and then he showed a picture of a leak. And I was like, you know what?
It's very on brand British humor. He's a top lad.
Yeah, top. Funny. Yeah, exactly. But you know what? If Danny heard it from other places, I'll trust it a little bit more though. So.
But it could be neat. Look on the horizon for some potential new units. Think about what it might be. Let us know in the comments down below if you have any lists that you're looking at, you have any changes, you have anything that we thought you might missed. Looking forward to hearing from you. Danny, once again, thank you for coming out, sir. Appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Peace.